We're here with Glendora Folsom Buell from A Chat with Glendora, and great to see you this morning, Glendora.
Good morning, dear Drew Wilson.
And we got Carol on technical support on your end, and we're going to get pretty good with this Zoom meeting yet.
Yeah, she deserves a lot of applause.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I would like to say thank you, God. Thank you, all you engineers, all you physicists, all of you chemists, all of you electricians who have come up with this grand miracle of doing the very thing that we're doing now, all of us together by way of Zoom.
It really is great, isn't it? And this is show number 13,679 for the Glendora Broadcast Network. Does that include your shows with Satellite 6 and the SS Glendora too?
No, Drew, this is brought, the figure you just heard, 13,679. Drew, that is for Cablecast, A Chat with Glendora, only since 1972. Broadcast was from 1953.
I don't know, is there anyone in the world that's been on television since 1953 other than you?
We do claim the longest running public access television show and still going, Drew.
In the world, and then on top of that, you were on TV, you know, starting in the early 1950s. On
Yep,
top of it,
right.
it's really staggering if you think about
It's staggering for the poor public.
it. So in doing some research for this show, Glendora, I was perusing your Wikipedia page. Of course, you're represented on Wikipedia, and it documents your history in public access. And I came upon the fact that you were on the David Letterman show back in the 1980s.
1987, dear.
Right. And you were a guest on the show, and Rob Reiner was the other guest.
Yes, and Rob Reiner was so gracious. It was fun. They offered to send and get a limo for us to come up to Westchester, which is where all the rich people live and sleep. And they offered to send us a limo, but we drove into their special parking, underground parking, in our own 1980 Lincoln Continental Mark VI. The story goes, true or not, that one of the technicians who works at 30 Rock saw Glendora on TV interviewing the CEO and president of the National Broadcasting Company, and said to the people on the David Letterman show, here is an interesting guest for you to consider. And out of that came the invitation.
Tell me, Glendora, so what do you remember of the interview and meeting David Letterman and being there, and tell me what you remember of that day.
He is very well tailored and very well dressed. And then after the show, I saw him go by. He went by in a sweatsuit.
Right.
Because then they sit down and they put their heads together and they write the next night's show. And then he would speed up the Hutchinson River Parkway because he lived in Darien, Connecticut, not far from you. That's on Route 7.
Right, right.
And that's where he would speed up the Hutchinson Parkway, and he got caught by a Harrison policeman, and he was summoned to court for going 95 up the Hutchinson.
Yeah, I used to watch David Letterman a lot, and it's interesting because I was living in New York at that time, and I used to go over to 30 Rock, and I'd get tickets to see David Letterman in Studio 4A, I think it was, or something. It was, so
Yeah.
And I saw
Yes.
quite a few shows recorded in that studio myself around that time. So I could walk over to 30 Rock in a matter of 10 minutes or so. And particularly in the summertime, uh, it would be actually just a respite to go over there. I could pick up a ticket by just asking people in line, and I'd go see the show recorded. And the studio was air conditioned so well that it was a real great respite to just go over there and see a show. And I saw a number of shows recorded, and it's a sort of an interesting story. One of the shows I saw was James Brown just after he'd gotten out of prison, and he did a couple songs on the David Letterman show, and I was in the audience for one of his appearances there. And I also saw, for whatever it's worth, Jerzy Kaczynski a number of times. He wrote the book that was adapted to become the movie Being There, which starred Peter Sellers. And he was one of the guests I saw a number of times as well. And I saw the show recorded probably a dozen times around that time. To elaborate on that story, that was the same studio that as a kid, I saw Jeopardy recorded in. That studio they used to record Jeopardy in that same studio, I believe. When Art Fleming and was the host, and Don Pardo was the off-camera voice. I was interested to find that out about you, though, that you were on the Letterman show. And
I had to go to the green room, and they forced makeup on me. And this makeup had been used on other people. The lipstick, for instance, had been on other people's lips. And they forced me to go to the green room and wear makeup. And I protested, but I did it. And then my husband was with me, and he thought David Letterman was about one of the funniest people that he had ever listened to. And so my husband was a very, very good audience in the green room. What you must know about him, his whole motivation was he was very angry to the point of being very belligerent because NBC would not give him the Tonight Show.
right.
That's what David Letterman wanted. He wanted the Tonight Show. And that's when he began to curse the network and curse them on the air as he did. This blank network, meaning NBC. And that's when he signed over to CBS, when they did not give him the Tonight Show.
Right. Yeah, Jay Leno got that.
If you want to know the truth, why David Letterman had Glendora on his show, it was so he could needle her about her interview with Robert Wright, the CEO of NBC. He tried to needle Robert Wright, and Glendora kept saying, no, Mr. Wright is a very nice man. And when I talked to Robert Wright at his home, by the way, Robert Wright lived in Fairfield, Connecticut, your state.
Right.
And when I talked to Mr. Wright over the phone afterwards, I said, I stood up for you. He said, I thank you for that.
Yeah, around that time, he was definitely at war with NBC, and I believe GE at that time was the parent company, and it was a constant thing on the show at that time. That I could definitely see where that would be part of his modus operandi there.
And that's why he would not have me back again, because I took Mr. Wright's side.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Well,
interesting. That's really interesting.
Now, folks, you people who are the Drew audience, you are the first to hear that. I have known that for a long time, and I have never made it public until this very moment today. So you got a scoop.
It's exactly, this is a scoop. A chat with Glendora / Art Now in here, public access scoop. Yeah, that it is interesting though, but anyway. So I'm more interested in what's going on in 2022 with you, Glendora.
Question. Audience of Drew, very, very deep question. Should Glendora discontinue public access television?
I don't know why why you do that.
I'm tired.
Yeah, well, the thing about public access is it's fighting for relevancy amidst the whole television landscape, media landscape. So there's so much going on, and just it's so fragmented, television these days. It's hard to get a big audience. It's hard to reach for anybody really to reach a large audience. We grew up in a time when broadcast television, there was just a handful of stations, and you could reach a large audience just by being on network television or being on any kind of even a local origination television. And now it's so fragmented with so many different outlets, and that can be frustrating. It's definitely frustrating.
But what is your answer? Yes or no?
I don't think you should leave public access television. I'd like to see Glendora on in perpetuity.
Are you thinking of leaving public access television?
I'm not myself. I'm pretty happy. I'm in terms of where I'm at doing what I'm doing here. We had this. I've been with it. I was with Atlantic Broadband for 2 years now. SEC TV. I have a lot of freedom. I mean, I come to work. I make television all day, and then I have a second job as a stagehand here in Connecticut, and that gives me the opportunity to work with some other people, usually on the weekends. So I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. I mean, it would always be great to be doing something else. I'm a behind the scenes person first and foremost. I consider myself a
You are not.
cameraman, editor, producer.
You are not a behind the scene person. You're on the TV right now.
Oh, I know, but I'm saying my real, my favorite part of the whole media landscape is the editing. I gotta say, I like editing a lot.
Back to the subject. Back to the subject. Drew TV audience, should Glendora discontinue public access television?
My answer is no.
Excuse me, dear Drew.
My answer is no. I say keep going, Glendora. But maybe you want to dial it back and take a break, because it can be a lot. It definitely can be a lot.
What show number is this, dear?
13,679.
Would that be a good reason, TV audience of Drew?
I think you got to hit 14,000, Glendora. You got to go for 14,000. And then once you get there, I'm going to say you got to go for 15,000.
Now, it is the longest running public access television show in the world.
Yeah.
And right at the moment, I do believe that public access television is teetering. And does it look good for the longest running public access TV show to walk out on it?
No, you're a stalwart.
So, TV audience of Drew at home, I do feel guilty about it. I have a sense of guilt, even though I'm 93 years old, and it's a tremendous amount of work to put together 75 TV stations with 4 new shows every 2 months.
Right.
That's a lot of distribution.
Yeah.
70 TV stations from Boston to San Diego. Now, Drew, I want to tell you what San Diego said. He said, with your permission, I will not stop a chat with Glendora. I will continue it. He said, I have 59 chat with Glendora programs, and I will keep playing them as long as I have this job and into the next person who has this job. I will not stop playing it.
Right. Well, I mean, you'll be on somewhere or another for that very reason, I think, for forever. I mean, people will be playing a chat with Glendora somewhere or another for a long time to come. I mean, I feel the same way here. I think we'll keep playing a chat with Glendora regardless. So, because basically your shows aren't really dated particularly, and they're not time stamped or anything. You're talking about issues that I think will be relevant for a long time to come. The one thing about television is people can become sort of outmoded over time just because technology changes. You know, a show that was done in the 50s, like for instance, your show, the SS Glendora, some of it doesn't even exist because technology changes so much.
Let's stay on the subject, Drew, okay?
Well, I've given you my answer, Glendora. I say a resounding no. I say carry on. 14,000 should be the threshold, the new goal line. But I understand it can be a lot, and people who don't do television don't know that what is involved. And like you say, doing 4 shows every 2 months and distributing them to over 70 channels, I know how much work that is. It's huge. It's a lot of work, and you have people that are helping you, and it's staggering to think how much work it is. I know.
And it costs a lot of money.
Which is an interesting subject. And now that you mentioned that, I was like, I wonder, do you support it yourself, or do you receive any kind of 501c3 contributions? Or
no, I have no sponsor. Everything comes out of my grocery money.
Right. So that's something I've wondered about, is so you are self-supporting. That's a huge expense too. I mean, do you send out the shows as DVDs to all those different channels?
Okay, I'm trying to ask your TV audience, what is their opinion?
Right. Well, speaking for myself, I give you the answer that I'd like to see you keep going, but I do understand, where you're coming from. My TV audience, here, I don't know. I've gotten some positive feedback about, the interviews, but yeah.
How many shows have you done, Drew?
I haven't really counted it myself. I mean, as far as doing this show, I started doing it in April of 2014. So, and I haven't really counted it. I mean, I started in television and media and stuff like that. In 1982, I took an animation course at State University of New York, the State University of New York at Purchase. And I've been doing something or another for an awful long time. But as far as myself hosting a show,
Drew,
it's not even 1,000 shows.
It's okay. Drew, I want you to know this, that the last public I heard from was in November of last year. I have not heard from a TV viewer since November of last year.
Right.
That happened also to be in your state of Connecticut. It was from Stanford. A woman called up and said, Glendora, you're right. Kindness is the only way. That's the last viewer I heard from. Yet, every day when I go to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, there's at least 16 people lined up who want to talk about the show.
Right. And that's one of the things that when you're doing a television studio, and this is a subject I've discussed here too with producers that come and produce shows here in the studio. And I remember hearing an interview of Mike Wallace when Mike Wallace was hosting 60 Minutes, and he was sort of, in a studio by himself, not a live audience, getting very little feedback. And he was, at that time, was saying, it's frustrating. And here's Mike Wallace was at that time, 60 Minutes was the #1 rated show on network television. And I remember him expressing the exact same feeling, like, I'm not getting any kind of feedback. And it's, doing a show without a live studio audience, it is frustrating for sure. And I've heard that from people like I say, Mike Wallace had the #1 rated show on network television, and he felt that same sort of isolation. It's frustrating. Well, I'm glad we've had this discussion, Glendora. I'm sorry that you're considering not doing the show, but I do understand, where you're coming from for sure.
A woman said, I have the most delicious recipe for casserole. I simply mention it, and my husband says, let's eat out. Why did the prince, Prince, want his daddy to go to kindergarten with him?
Okay, you told this one on the last show, so I know the answer.
Do you
Because
know
the
it?
teacher asked him to bring a ruler to school.
Good for you, Drew. One lawyer said to another, sir, I regret to inform you that our clients are in danger of agreement. How do you like your new doctor? He started out my examination by taking his stethoscope and listening closely to my wallet.
That's not even so funny anymore right now because I'm facing some medical bills, Glendora.
The lawyer said, I want a new trial on the basis of new evidence. The judge says, what is the new evidence? The lawyer said, I just found out my client has another $20,000.
Yeah. The attorneys, they know who's got the deep pockets for sure.
There was a collision of two cars and a third car pulled up and a man got out of the third car and he said, I saw the whole thing happen. I'm a lawyer. I'll take either side.
Oh no, you're on a roll now. Hey, Glendora, thanks so much. I appreciate you taking the time today.
Okay, dear Drew audience. I would like to know how we can be of service to you. And if you would like a public access show yourself, honey, Drew TV audience, remember, it is a law. You cannot be denied a public access show. It is a law, federal, state, and municipal. And if you want a TV show, the TV station cannot say no to you, and they have to help you.
Right.
So if you want to express yourself on TV, you go to the TV station, you show them your proof of residency, and you say, this is a show I would like your help with. Please help me. They cannot say no. They have to give you the airtime. They have to give you the studio time. They have to give you remote equipment to go out and do your show, whatever. I would do your show at home on a JVC Vario. Take care. I love you, Drew. I love you, Drew. I love you, Drew TV audience.
Thank you so much, Glendora. I appreciate it. And it was really a great show. And I look forward to the next one. Many more to come, Glendora. Thank you so much.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.